Hello there. Welcome back. It's time for another children's sermon. Thanks for joining us. I was just reading my favorite book, the Jesus Storybook Bible, and I was looking at this story, The Young Hero and the Horrible Giant. This is a story about David and Goliath. It's a story you've probably heard before, but I bet you've never heard it told like this. As always, the Jesus Storybook Bible does a really good job giving us some cool pictures and some really good ways of thinking about the meaning of this story. And we're reading this week because on Sunday, if you watch the live stream, which I hope you do, you're going to hear a lot about King David. Yeah, and it's the same David that we hear about in this story. And so why don't we listen to the story first, and then we'll hop back on here to talk about it a little bit more. But here it is, the story of King David.
The young hero and the horrible giant. God's people had some scary enemies, but the Philistines were the scariest of them all. And now the Philistines had come to fight them. The Philistines had a secret weapon called Goliath. Goliath was a terrifying soldier, and worst of all, a giant. A giant so strong and so tall and so scary that no one had ever been able to fight him and live to tell the tale. So there they were, the Philistines standing on the top of one hill, God's people standing on the top of the other. Every day Goliath came out and shouted, "Send your best soldier to fight me. If he wins, we will be your slaves. But if I win, you will be our slaves." No one spoke. No one moved. "Chickens," Goliath bellowed. "Your God can't save you. I'll rip your heads off and have you on toast." His beady, greedy eyes glowered at them hungrily from under his horrible helmet, as if any minute he really might just gobble them all up. And he laughed his terrible laugh. Ha 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 ha! It boomed, echoing horribly around and around the dry, dry valley. Well, Goliath might just as well have been a green, slimy monster with 3 heads, because God's people froze with fear. Their eyes glazed over and they turned deathly pale. They knew if someone didn't do something quickly, if someone didn't save them, but God would do something. God would send someone to save them. No, you remember that David was the youngest son of Jesse? Well, his brothers were soldiers in the army. One day, when David brought his brothers their lunches, he saw Goliath, and he saw how scared everyone was. "Don't be afraid," David said. "I'll fight him for you." "You're only a little shepherd boy," the king said, "and Goliath is a great soldier. How will you fight him?" "God will help me," David said. So the king gave David his royal armor to wear, but it was too heavy and too big, and David couldn't even walk. "I won't need this," David said. Instead, David picked out 5 smooth stones from the stream. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Took his slingshot and walked towards Goliath. Step, step, step. Goliath walked towards David. Thud, thud, thud. "You?" Goliath peered down at the small boy. "I'm little," David shouted up to him, "but God is great." Goliath laughed an even terribler laugh than usual. Ha 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 ha! It went. With just one swing of his giant sword, Goliath could finish the boy off. But David kept going. It isn't how strong you are or how many swords and spears you have that will save you. It is God who saves. This is God's battle, and God always wins his battles. David put a stone in his sling, swung it around, and let it go. The little stone flew whizz like a bullet through the air and struck Goliath, thud, right between the eyes. Goliath stopped laughing. He stumbled and staggered and crash fell dead. When the Philistines saw Goliath was dead, they ran away. And when God's people saw them running away, they cheered. God had saved his people. David was a hero. Many years later, God would send his people another young hero to fight for them and to save them. But this hero would fight the greatest battle the world had ever known.
I'm Thomas, and this is how not to hang up your Star of Hope.
Hey, welcome back. Those were some funny videos in between, weren't they? That is not how you hang a star on the Christmas tree. But before I tell you about that star piece, well, how about that story about King David? Wasn't that great? Right? He was just a little kid, and he defeated this great giant that was there, that was threatening his people. And I love how the Jesus Storybook Bible ends that story. They say that in the future, God will send another hero to fight for God's people. It's talking about Jesus. And so we are about to enter into the season of Advent. Advent is my favorite time of year. It's that preparatory time as we lead up to Christmas. And so this Sunday is the first Sunday of Advent. And we're going to hear about the prophecy that was told to King David, talking about the Messiah who is to come. Jesus, this hero that will fight for us. So this all brings us back around to those funny videos of how not to hang a Star of Hope on the Bethany Christmas tree. We are inviting you. Your homework this week is to write down what you're hoping for. Write down some signs of hope and hang it on the Bethany Christmas tree. There's going to be more information in the email blast and in the email from Miss Gail that she sends out to all the Sunday school students. But that's your homework, is to start thinking about the hopes that you have for the future. Because that's what Advent's all about looking towards the future with hope for what God can and will do for us, for all the ways that God will fight for us in the future. So make your Star of Hope. Be on the lookout for more details about the Star of Hope and how you can hang them properly on the Bethany Christmas tree. And that'll be that. That's a great way to engage this season. I'm Pastor Nate. This has been your children's sermon for this week. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.